Gentlemen, welcome to the Be the Man podcast. I'm your host, Greg Denning. Today, my guest is Austin Foley. He is the Executive Vice President of FitPro Tracker. He's also a real estate developer, and he's got a young family, three small kids, and a wonderful wife. And we dive into investing and business and saving, why they're super savers. We talk about how he grew up with just an amazing set of parents and how he wanted to be like his dad, right? And what that means to have that kind of example and to carry that legacy forward. And we talk about systems and strategies and habits and routines that work, especially for younger families. If you have smaller kids, or if you have had, what it's like, right? There's a lot going on. And little kids have different kind of demands. But it's true for all of us, right? As we're going to be husbands and fathers and great men and businessmen and investors and leaders, we've got to get this stuff dialed in. So we have an awesome conversation today. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Let's dive in. All right, Austin, man, so excited to have you on the show and to share your story and background. You guys, for those of you listening, we're going to talk. Austin has a young family and a brand new baby. So we're gonna talk about that aspect of definitely fatherhood and marriage and how that all fits in and work and all that stuff. But before we get into all that, Austin, why don't you give us a little bit of your background, tell us a little bit of your story, man.
Well, first off, Greg, thank you for letting me just hop on the show. I'm super excited to talk about the next stages and what it looks like for the failures, but also some wins in marriage and life and young kids. But a little bit of background about myself. And I married the most beautiful woman in the world, inside and out. And her name is Alyssa, and she's a NICU nurse. And she actually works night shifts at the NICU. So at the hospital, and I have three incredible little kids. A little girl that's 4.5, and this girl talks more than me. So it's pretty fun to have
that stage, dude, of just constant chatter. They want to tell you everything. It's so cute.
Oh, I love it. And then I just have one that's going to be turning 3 in about a week. And that's a little girl. And then we just had a little boy. He's about a month and a half old. So we don't know what he's going to be like, but we are so excited because it brings a whole new dynamic to the family. Because it's been princess, all these pink cars and princess. And now it's like a boy, and we got trucks, and we got dinosaurs. Yeah. So
and it's so excited. Cool. You're just starting. In fact, you're probably already noticing. But as they get going, because we have 4 girls and 3 boys, and as they get going, it's such a different parenting experience with boys and girls. And I love that. I love that dynamic. And even if you try to I'm going to parent them all the same, that they're not the same, man. They're all over the place. And I'm so happy for you having that experience. You're right in the middle of it.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. And it's been great. And what's really cool is, working with my wife, who, like I said, is a NICU nurse at the hospital. She works night shift, but then, I'm also the vice president of a SaaS company. It's called FitPro Tracker. And so I'm the EVP of business and development, as well as, I also have a real estate team here in Arizona with my father. And it's called the Foley Real Estate Team, and we do residential and commercial. But we'll hit on that later. But there's a reason why I went into that field was because of my father. I wanted to work with, my best friends. So that's a little bit about myself.
Yes.
And family.
Okay, well let's go right there. Because you give us a background of your dad. You had a good relationship with your dad growing up, and then wanted to kind of stay close to him and keep working with him. What was family life growing up?
Man, it's funny because that's actually what I really wanted to talk about was, having that mentor, that person that just really gives you the foundation of what a marriage is supposed to look like. And I will tell you, I had the 2 best parents that I could ever ask for that showed, and like my father showed me what it looked like to be a man, as a husband, but also as a man, as a father. And what did that do? It created this, I want to be like my dad. I want to be just like him. Growing up, I wanted to be like him. I wanted to act like him. I wanted to talk like him. I wanted to mirror his way that he communicated. And then what did that do? As I started getting older, I wanted to go into business with him.
Wow. Okay, brother, this is so cool. I was just and pre-recording, you guys, we were, Austin and I were talking because I just got back from a trip with my boys to Maine, and it was amazing and had this really cool experience. But it had me thinking a lot about what you just said. So, my dad split when I was young. Stepdads came and went. I didn't have the model. In fact, I've been racking my brain. Like, I was into my teens, kind of late teens, before I feel like I saw a couple that had a really good marriage. And I was like, this is what it can be like. This is amazing, right? And so when I was alone on my own as a teenager, I wanted to create what you just described, right? So it's cool hearing you tell your story, because I'm like, yes, that's what I want to build for my kids, so that when they are adults and starting their own families, they've had the modeling along the way. So, man, that's cool to hear you describe that, and that your dad was the model of a man as a husband and a father and a businessman.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's so crazy, Greg, because growing up, I knew my dad was cool. I knew he was awesome, but I even like, because he sacrificed, and I think that's the biggest thing that really stuck out to me was he was at the practices, he was at the games. He did everything he could to be able to be at the school events and to be there for me. And that sacrifice at the time, of course, you're like, oh, Dad, don't come to my practice. Oh, don't come to my game. But now looking back, seeing that sacrifice is what catapulted me into going, holy smokes, he sacrificed time, he sacrificed his career to be able to pour into me, one of his greatest investments.
Yep.
So that one day I can have a family and I can raise them right, and I can be the father, the husband, that's right. And that's time. Time is the most valuable asset that we have, and he gave his time to raise me up.
Amen. And at least from my perspective, it needs to be both quality and quantity.
Yes.
And I think what you're describing there, I think your dad did it right, man. I think if we're going to sacrifice something, don't let it be the family. Like, I don't know that anyone's going to be happy they sacrifice their family on the altar of some kind of business pursuit or project or something. It's the other way around. It's like, and Rachel and I have talked about, my wife and I, we talked about a lot. Like, if something has to progress slower, and it's either family or business, we'll let the business go slow.
Mm-hmm.
We'll let the business stay small, so the family is big, so to speak, quote, and big in success and happiness and fulfillment and connection and relationships.
Definitely. And I think one of the big thing is, Greg, that, going through and, the business that I'm in with FitPro Tracker and these different SaaS companies, but I also, have been around a lot of wealthy people. And what I've seen growing up, going through college and going through these different, startup companies that I've been a part of and whatnot, is money is, you need money to be able to survive. But what happens is, you see some of these very, very wealthy people and they have no family, right?
Yep.
They have nothing that they just can't, the kids can't wait for them to die, or, they don't have anybody that they can rely on or trust on. And, these wealthy people, they give anything in the world to be able to have a little bit more time, right? They would get all the money that they have.
Yeah.
Relationship.
Yeah.
And they're, and they don't have it, but they have all the money in the world, but they don't have the relationship. They don't have the family members that love them, that they want to be around them. They just got people that want them to die, and then they get their money, right? And so I think it's really, like you said, it's making sure that family is full of love, and that, what really matters in life. And so anyways, that's what my dad, I mean,
Yes,
my parents modeled that, and I watched them sacrifice their business to be able to be there for my sister and I.
Let's go a little bit deeper into that, how your dad did it and how you're trying to do it, because I don't want to, and I know you're not saying this, and I don't even want to even slightly convey like, hey, if you want a great family, you just take, if you want a great family, take a vow of poverty, right? It's like, we're just going to have to be poor so we have a great family, because that's not true. Like, we can figure this out. We live in an age and a time like where the opportunities are there, where I think we can have a absolute abundance and the relationships, which is part of abundance, right? I think we can figure that out. Interestingly, a lot of men are still struggling with that. They're still like, man, come on. If I'm going to succeed, I have to put all this in. That means the family's on the side, or I'm going to cut my own legs off at work in the marketplace so I can be family. And they think it's one or the other. So let's like share what you saw with your dad, and then what you're experiencing with yourself.
Well, it's a great point. Yeah, it is. I think it goes hand in hand. I think it depending on, because every situation, every relationship, and every marriage is different, right?
Yep.
It's not a one fit all.
Yep.
In every business, every place that you work is different, and so you have to find out what works and what doesn't work. And I think that was just personal, like watching my parents, but also watching how my wife and I did it. For my parents, my dad did real estate, and he was a kick butt. I mean, this guy was a rock star in the Arizona market, and so being able to see him be able to just he did lose some deals because of having to go to sporting events or travel with me,
Right.
but at the same time he knew that he had to provide, and if that meant he had to go and do a deal, that meant he had to go do a deal. So I think it's a give and a take, and it's not like an all or nothing
Yep.
thinking where it's like it's, oh, you have to live in a life of poverty, but at the same time being there, like you said, a quantitative, also qualitative, but
Yep.
at the same time being able to be in your kid's life. And you don't have to go to every single practice or every single game, but knowing that you are there every step of the way throughout their journey. And
Yes.
so, and same with your wife. And so really what my wife and I did going into this, my wife's a nurse and she works nighttime. And there's a reason why she works night. And I've asked her, I said, do you want to switch to days? And she's like, no, I don't want to switch to days, because A, it works out better for our work schedule, but then B, it's she enjoys working night shifts. She does. And so
Nice.
what we ended up doing was being
When
able
does she
to
sleep, bro? I got to jump in. Like,
she
because
sleeps right before, so she'll sleep about 2 hours before, 2 to 3 hours, the night before, and then when she comes home, she sleeps about 3 hours afterwards.
that's it. She has
Yeah, that's
those
it.
windows.
Oh, don't worry. That's not my decision. That wasn't me like,
I
for
know.
you,
I
this is
know.
the only
Like
way.
no, I hear you saying that. She's like, no, I want to do this. I'm like, oh man, plus three
Yep.
littles, and we're gonna get into this because the littles are demanding, especially on mama. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Okay, well, man, she's a trooper there.
I told you I married up. I mean, I married up in all facets, inside and out. And I think really what we talked about was, I even asked her, I said, do you even want to still work? And she's like, I do. And so, there's trying to figure out a way and coming together in marriage, in talking about it. How are we going to make this work? And I think, that kind of goes into like the marriage side before you get married, is setting up that foundation of, asking the hard questions of,
Yep.
finance and, how are you going to do this? But at the same time, setting those core values in life, but also in your marriage of, what do you want to get out of this? If my wife was like, oh, I want to be, have $100 million. Well, that wasn't going to be my core value. So when we built our core value in marriage, we wanted to come together and find out what works best for both of our lives, and where did we land on that? And that was one of them.
Yeah, listing out, and just to break this down, it's a literal like thinking and even writing and then conversational exercise. I think all of us should do. And if we did it at the beginning of our marriage, my wife and I did as well. Like we knew what we wanted, what we did, and it sounds like you guys did too. But anyone can start. Even if you're listening to this and you're like, man, we never did that, and we're already 20 years in. Like you can still start and say, just let's sit down, let's identify our values, see where there's alignment, and then let's build a family lifestyle around that, which is the
Exactly.
key.
Exactly.
Man,
And
indispensable.
it really is. And then it gives you a vision, and it gives you a direction. Because I can't tell you, how many times, I've mentored young men and they don't have a vision or a direction. And when you have those core values, it gives you where you're working together as a team, not individually. And that's what marriage is built around, is you're working together as a team towards your goals, toward your vision, towards your core values.
And it's worth bringing up. So years ago we took our kids to this rodeo. In fact, I think it's the only, no, maybe one other time. There's one that's in Costa Rica, we were down there, and then once in the States. We went to this rodeo, and there was a horse pulling competition. And it was like, it was awesome, right? It was exciting. And so we got to go and
Right.
walk next to the teams. And these were just these beautiful, huge draft horses, just muscles everywhere, right? And we picked this team. We thought, oh, for sure they're going to win. It's amazing, right? They were just so big and so strong. And it was interesting finding out the math too. In my mind, in the simplicity, I was like, okay, if one horse can pull 1,000 pounds, then two horses will pull 200, maybe 2,500. But the reality is a team can like 5x. So if a horse can pull 1,000 pounds, a team can pull like 5,000. But a team that pulls in unison, exactly like you're saying, can just waste everybody else. And it was this one team. It was a medium-sized team. It wasn't the biggest team. It was a medium-sized team. And man, when they hit it, what was the key was the unison. When the leaders gave them the command, boy, they hit that harness exactly in sync. And so they just wasted everybody else in winning the competition. And I have to share that story and that visual, because that's exactly what you're talking about. It's like when we get our values lined up and you're working together as a team in marriage, man, you can pull off amazing things that literally seem impossible and perhaps are impossible for others who aren't in alignment or working in sync.
Oh, definitely. But that Greg, you hit it right on. But that came with trial and error, right?
Yep.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times my wife and I had to sit down and go on dates and just go, where are we? We're not on the right page, right?
Yep.
We are on two separate pages.
Yep.
I remember one was at a restaurant and I'm like, my wife's almost in tears. I'm almost in tears. And we're like, what's wrong? And it just took a reset to be able to understand, okay, this is where we're not in unison. Because when you're not in unison and you're trying to pull off something that's almost impossible, then that's where the small little cracks start popping up, where
Yes.
you're suddenly getting upset at one or you're getting upset at the other one. And it's like you said, you got to be in unison, and it's okay. Sometimes you're not, and you got to just reset, get back on the same page.
In fact, I would say quite frequently, one or both of you is going to get a little bit off. And so the difficult conversation and constantly revisiting this, I think that's such
Mhm.
an excellent point. Like for me, this is part of the marriage journey. We're constantly in connection and saying, how are we? How are we doing? And oh man, here's a new opportunity. Here's a new challenge. Here's a new baby. Like nothing like a baby to put pressure on it. But then you just, when you think you got it dialed in, your kids go and grow up and they get a little bit older and you're like, man, everything was working when they were in their tweens. Now, like we have to shift when they're in their teens. Oh, now they're young adults. We got to shift again. So I think it would be foolish for any of us to be like, okay, we're good. And like, we have this down and it's going to be easy riding from here on out. Like you're spot on, brother. You got to constantly revisit that. And there will be tears and there will be frustration and there will be, missing, you just kind of miss each other. Like, well, no, this is what I'm saying. It's like, this is what I'm saying. And we just keep missing and you just have to keep hashing through that until we get that alignment.
Definitely. And you brought up a great point. Communication is huge in that marriage, because that's really what is that driving force of getting on the same page and understanding, like, oh, where are we at? And you just, like you said before, we just had a newborn. It's a boy. Whoever's listening will know, if you guys have boys and girls, it's completely different. But at the same time, it's understanding and communicating with each other through those hard times and the good times, and to be able to talk through those different struggles or trials that we're going through in life. And so, like I said, we just had a boy, and now I have my wife who's postpartum, and she is now, like you said, the baby is really relying on her. We got two girls that are super energetic, and it's just a constant communicate, making sure we're on the same level. And I'm going to be honest, as a husband, I don't do the best at it every single time. And so it's
Right.
constantly going back and being like, babe, I'm sorry. I probably should have done this a little different.
Yes. Oh, you just nailed it right there, brother. Nailed it. When we kind of miss it, gentlemen, just go back and say, I'm sorry, I should have done that differently. Let's redo this. What works for you guys in aspects of communication? Again, you mentioned dates, which I hope everybody listening, that just has to be a regular rhythm. Like I would say at a minimum weekly, some
Mhm.
kind of, even when you have little ones, that's harder you have to get babysitters or family or something. Can't even leave the babies. Sometimes babies come with it on dates. When we had a section when we always had a baby, Rachel was pregnant or we had a toddler, some baby, something. And so we did years and years of dates where we brought a little baby with us, right? But it wasn't going to stop us. So dating at a minimum, because if you're doing, I don't know, a date once a month or something, usually because, oh boy, if I don't, something's going to get ugly here. Like survival mode dating, that just doesn't cut it. But what's working for you guys as far as those communication mechanics?
Yeah, great question. It is once a week, trying to get out. We had to put a pause on that just when we had the baby, and whatnot. But even but even at home dates, right?
Yep.
And so
That's what we
you
did
don't
too.
just,
Yep.
yeah, you don't have to go out and go spend money because there's budgets. We budget and we're like, crap, we don't have enough money right now. But it's, at home dates, really, really pouring in to each other at home. And I think that really goes back to like your love languages. So like, what is the other person's love language? And I would suggest if anybody that hasn't done like the 5 love language, or taken the test or read the book,
Yep.
it's huge. It's huge. And I always thought, with my wife, and it was such an eye-opening. I always thought, well, she's just like me, we have the same love language. No, we were two completely opposite. I mean, completely opposite. She loves quality time. I love physical touch. She loves, the gifts. And I'm like, I like I said, love physical touch. And what was the other one? Oh, words of affirmation. And so, it was one of those things that was eye-opening, and that quality time was huge. So weekly dates, not having to go out, but also, just spending that quality time, whether we're going on a walk. So we try and go on a walk like 2 to 3 times. The kids are
Oh,
strapped in,
fantastic.
even car rides where the kids are strapped in, and we can just kind of sit and talk for a little while on that car ride and just kind of debrief. But well, and then the other thing that we do is once a month we'll go over. We have like a questionnaire that we just not a questionnaire, but like a list of questions
Mhm.
that we'll go over that just help us stay on the same page.
Oh
Help us
man, that's
so
huge.
that we're there.
Yep. Man, you mentioned those are they're simple. They seem elementary when you hear them. You're like, okay, but they work. Like the walk, doing 2 or 3 walks a week, where the kids get out, they're kind of doing their thing or riding their little bikes. You got strollers or
Right.
whatever's happening, and you guys can get outside and move and talk and connect. And then the drives, or just having questions that you regularly revisit. It's some kind of prompt,
Oh,
something to say, hey, let's spark a conversation that's meaningful, instead of the merely like transactional conversations, like I'm doing
right.
this, you're doing this, okay, good night, good luck, right?
It's so funny, Greg, is my wife and I just downloaded an app, and I don't remember what the app is, and it sparks those conversations. It's like the date
Yes.
app. And
Yeah.
we love it because it will ask questions like, what was the first thing that you noticed about your partner? And you have to talk, and it really opens up. And I can tell you after that, man, we were definitely on the same page. So it was,
That's
and,
so
we
cool.
love that app. And it just kind of helps with, with those questions and just talking and communicating. Even if you are great at communicating or you're kind of going through a dry spell, those questions are huge that kind of open that door of communication.
Yeah. Let's go a little bit deeper here, if you don't mind, because I think the stage of life you're at, I think is super valuable. There's a lot of really powerful lessons here for a lot of listeners, and some of the gentlemen here have older kids, but maybe it'll come with grandkids, or you got younger families, or kind of. Um, we have like the older group, and then we had a few years, and then we had 3 more kids, so it's almost like 2 little families. And then I met some gentlemen this weekend that they got remarried, so they had a kind of older family, and then they got
Yep.
remarried and had some kids, and so they have a little younger family again. But in this younger time period, um, there's a lot of fatigue, sleep deprivation demands, where your oldest is 4, right? So you're still doing a lot. Even for a 4-year-old, they seem so grown up compared to the baby, right? And so capable.
Right.
But even at 4, you're still doing so much. And so there's going to be some stress and some strain. And I guess this is true for all of us. So it's not just true for this, but it seems to be obvious to see it, right, when the kids are little. So stress, strain, tears, like fatigue, sleep deprivation, like, oh my goodness, how am I taking care of all this stuff? Sometimes all 3 kids are crying at once, or making each other cry. Right? And you're just like, oh, and diapers everywhere, and blowouts, and you're like, oh my goodness, what is happening? You guys have some things that are working for you, or some thoughts? Just let's share some thoughts about this, the stress and strain, because it comes on the marriage and it comes on us as individuals. Almost like if we could picture it as a pipe, you add a lot of pressure to that pipe. If there's any cracks in there, boy, it can really spring a leak.
Oh, and it will. And then, like you said, it actually like magnifies those cracks, right? When the kids are crying. And one of the things that my wife Allie and I, we try and go through, different books together.
Yeah.
And we always want to be working with each other, right? We always want to, and what I noticed, especially one of the big things that, never being married before, when we first got married, it was, I thought I had this like lone wolf mentality, right? I was like, I'm a lone wolf, I can do this. I met my wife, and I didn't think I was going to get married until I was older. Like, I really didn't. I met my wife and I was like, holy crap, I have to marry this girl. Like, I have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's
Yes.
the woman I'm marrying. And it was on our first date, right? On our first date. And of course, I didn't say anything because that can come off really creepy. So I just waited and waited and really just courted her. But it was, I always had this like, I'm by myself. And then when I met her, it completely changed. But I still had remnants of that mentality of like, it's me. And so what we ended up, through different books and premarital counseling, which I'm a huge firm believer in premarital counseling,
Oh, cool.
is we are a team and we're in this together. We are a team and we're in this together through the thick and the thin. And so it was reading these different books really helped, and playing these different games and making sure that we are on the same team. Now we might be on different pages at some point, and there's going to be tears, and sometimes when the kids are fighting, it's tough, but we are always on the same team. And reading through different books together have actually helped because we take time out of our day, whether it's in the morning. It's tough. Like right now with the newborn, kind of had to put that on pause.
Sure.
We're trying to get back into it, but we can talk about, hey, what did you learn? Hey, what did you see? What did you get out of this portion of it? How can we help with the kids or in our marriage? And it creates that camaraderie together, because at the end of the day, we were a family before our kids. We're a family with our kids, and we'll be a family after our kids leave.
Yes, that's huge. And I don't think a lot of us see to the end of that as
Yeah,
much.
and that was something that was, I was in charge of this men's group, and I was definitely the youngest guy there, and I don't know how I got in charge of this men's group. And going through and listening to these guys' failures, or not failures, but listening to their issues, and they would tell me, they're like, I failed. Like, I put my kids above my wife. I put my kids above my relationship with my spouse. And what happened was it caused different issues. And so for me, I said, okay. And I asked them, I said, what would you have done differently? And these are older gentlemen. And they said, I would have not put my kids above my wife, because, like we said, at the end of the day, you are a family before your kids, you are a family during your kids, and your family after your kids leave.
Yeah. Well, dude, a huge little nugget there of asking men who've been there, like, hey, what worked, what didn't work, what would you do differently? That's a game changer, man. You get so much wisdom from that. I want to emphasize a couple of points. One, you said that like you set things aside, and I think that's so important for us to realize that there's going to be time periods, and I think it's important to emphasize as well. They need to be temporary. Like when you got a new baby, it's like, okay, man, there's a lot of things that will work normally when you get back into the rhythm, and baby gets a little bit older and things like, okay, yeah, we can get back to that. There's going to be a lot of things just go on pause, and that's totally fine. I've talked to a lot of parents. They feel so bad if they're not just dialing in everything. I'm like, man, how could you during this
Right.
time period of your life where things are so crazy? If you have a child with illness
Right.
or a baby or a heavy workload, it just can't be chronic and long term. It's got to be short term, temporary, where you can lean into that, make that happen.
Definitely.
I want to hit the book thing, because when people ask us like what's been the secret of success for our marriage, and we've been married 22 years, is literally books. Like on our
Mm-hmm.
very first date, we were talking about books. In fact, that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the things I loved so much about Rachel. I'm like, man, you're reading some like serious stuff. It was some scholarly stuff. I'm like, that's sexy. Like, let's go out again and keep talking about books. And so we started a whole marriage like that, and we're both voracious readers still. And you're nailed it before, brother. Like, it brings so much alignment, even if we don't agree, but we
Right.
can read an author and be like, okay, well, let's formulate these ideas, and we can, even if we don't agree afterwards, we're still like,
Right.
well, we have this common vocabulary, and we can work through this. And reading together or listening to podcasts together, listening to audiobooks together, it's a game changer.
Oh, 100%, because it puts you on the same team. You guys are working together. You guys get to communicate and talk and like work through what you guys have read.
Yeah. Man, I love this. Where are you guys fitting in fitness? Okay, where I gotta ask, where are you fitting in? And again, the sex thing before and after birth, there's a generally a lot less,
Right.
but with her work schedule and your work schedule, if you don't mind me asking, where do you fit in sex time? Where do you fit in fitness? Where do you fit in the reading? 'Cause you guys are busy. I think this is a good example of like super busy little kids. Like, whoa, how do we fit the pieces that matter?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm an open book. I mean, that's the big thing is working on your schedule together, right? And making sure that if there's some things you got to cut out, you got to cut out. And my wife and I, we both, I mean, we're both extroverts, but we have a hard time saying no to things, whether it's friends, family, events. But that's one thing that we've really had to learn was say, like, I'm sorry that we can't hang out tonight to some friends or to family, and setting up different boundaries or barriers to family sometimes, because that's, because sometimes that it's, yeah, you just got to make sure that you have those boundaries and those barriers set up for your own family. So fitness, well, first off, I work out, I wake up early. So I definitely wake up early. My wife wakes up early before the baby, and that's where we fit our fitness in. Her and I are both big time fitness. I put myself through college as a trainer, training thousands of athletes a
Nice.
week.
Had a base there.
Hey,
Fantastic.
I had it, but then that dad bod came right back, and I'm like, holy
Yeah,
smokes, this is the
sucker.
real deal. So I got to get back into it. So, and so that was, definitely waking up early, but going to bed early as well. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that we got into this crazy, staying up way too late, and it just kind of threw off the rest of the time. It was 6 months period of us like that. We just had to reevaluate, talk about it, get on the same page, and really hold each other accountable on going to bed early. And then with sex, like you said, it's a. Oh yeah, what were you gonna say?
Well, no, that's spot on, brother. Because you're right, we've experienced that same thing. You'll get these little trends, maybe, or patterns, and if there's enough awareness and you're having the conversations, you're reading the books, you're like, hey, whoa, 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 like we're staying up too late,
Right.
or we're not scheduling our time well. I love that you pointed out like scheduling together. Like get in a planner and a schedule and make it happen, and then honor it. Like, and
Right.
find that alignment in there. So you're hitting some super powerful points.
Well, and really that actually came from, I don't know if anybody's read the book called Atomic Habits.
So
Uh,
good.
Loved it. And then the compound effect.
Yep.
It really helped. We were reading through that. We're like, whoa, we need to change some things up. Whereas it's a small little movements. It doesn't have to be drastic, that all or nothing thinking. It's just a small little movements. So yeah, definitely just kind of making sure that we're on the same page schedule wise. But then, like you said, with little ones, when it comes to like our sex life and whatnot, that is always uh, it's one of those things that we have to. It's not going to be like what you see on the movies, especially after you have kids. It was funny. I'll tell you a story. We were in a young marrieds class, and we were the oldest married couple, but we'd only been married for like a year, right? It was almost like the
That's
blind leading the
awesome.
blind. And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
what is happening? And we weren't leading it, but I'm kind of like just random off the wall type of person anyway. I walked in, I was late. It was right when I was training, and they were talking about like the sex life, like, hey, what is your sex life? How is it going? And again, we'd only been married for like a year and a half. And I walk in, and my wife's sitting right there, and they sit down and like, hey, Austin, we're just going through this chapter on, sex and what does that look like? And I I looked over, and I looked at my wife, and I said, actually, we're going to be leaving early to practice this section, this chapter, laughing. And then I looked over, and there was like three married couples just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And I was like, and the person that was leading the group was like, shh, shh. And my wife's elbowing me. She's like, Austin, you can't say that. I was like, and then, I'm laughing, like, we're going to be leaving early to practice this chapter. And, it's one of those things that every relationship is different, right? Like I said at the beginning, and what works for some couples might not work for other couples. And our biggest thing is that open line of communication. But at the same time, there's with that, we're huge in communicating on that part of the relationship of like, how is this, when is this, how is this going to work, especially like, hey, especially with the baby right afterwards, we kind of had to stop for a little while, and that's okay because it's a give and a take. That's a relationship. Exactly. You give and you take, and I can't make my wife feel bad like, oh, we can't have sex for 6 weeks after having a baby. No,
there's got to be that break. Yep, you're
right.
spot on. Man, I think your story is such a great indicator of kind of a general. If you were to take just a large group of couples and bring them in and you start talking about the sexual relationship, there's going to be a percentage of them, and from what I understand in the research, it would be a large percentage of them that are going to be in tears or frustrated around sex. And then there'd be another percentage that are in tears or frustrated around marriage or not marriage, sorry, finances or parenting or faith.
Yep.
Right. So there's a lot of challenges in marriage right now. And what I hear you saying, and I completely agree, it keeps circling back to this open communication and seeking to understand and then to be understood, like Carnegie taught, and reading the books together. Like, let's figure this out. That's cool. So you guys did you do some premarital counseling, and then you were obviously in some kind of class for newlyweds?
Oh yeah. So we did premarital counseling, and I'm gonna be honest, I was freaked out. Like, I was like, oh man, premarital counseling, is there something wrong with us? Like, why do we need to do? And that was actually something that my father-in-law said. He goes, I want you guys to do premarital counseling.
Good.
And yeah, and I was like, okay, I guess. And actually, my parents, they actually counsel quite a few couples right now. Whether they're premarital or after marriage, going through issues or whatnot. But and so I'm a huge firm believer in premarital counseling. And a guy named Chad Moore, a pastor in Arizona, he kind of put it in perspective. And this really, it knocked me right right between the eyes. He goes, my wife and I, we do counseling every 2 to 3 years. And I was like, whoa, like what?
You're like, do you guys suck at marriage or what? Right?
Yeah,
that's the initial thought.
Yeah, I was like, well, there's something wrong with you guys. Like, and he's like, no, it's the thing about this is you don't stand out in front of a gym and go to everyone walking in, you're weak, haha, you're weak, you're weak, you're weak. No, you don't do that, because the reason why you're going to the gym is to stay healthy, right? And he said, he's like, I want our marriage to be healthy. I want our marriage to be good, because I don't want that marriage counseling, to be the last thing that's holding our marriage together.
Right. And most people see it as a last resort. Exactly. Oh man, the metaphor is perfect, brother. You're like, only losers go to the gym, right? You're like, no, that's where we stay fit. And it's the same. We got to be working on our marriage like that.
Yeah. And so that's why we did premarital counseling beforehand, because it opens the door to the hard questions, right? Because when you're getting engaged, and whether it's you're super young or in your mid-20s to late 20s into 30s into 40s, like, there are some questions that need to be opened and talked about that sometimes they kind of get brushed over. So for instance, one was like the compatibility test. And this one really got me nervous, because I was like, am I going to be compatible?
You're like, no, man, I got to marry this girl. Don't do this.
This is the one I want to marry. And it was more of a personality. It was like, how do you guys deal with conflict resolution? Great. And we found out that we were the complete opposite. Right. And I'm over communicating. She's under communicating. And so how do you work together, and what tools do you need to learn to be successful in the conflict side? Now, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to help with that. So you can laugh about it and go, that's what they mean. We're carouseling out of, and we just keep going around in circles and circles. And you did this, and you said this, and you didn't clean the dishes. And so it just kind of gives you those tools to help you be successful. And then the other one was like financial, like you said before, financial is huge. And how do you spend your money? How do you save your money? What does that look like? And I would highly suggest people, take some of these tests, even if they have been 20 years in marriage or 10 years or just about to get married, because it opens that door. Because thankfully, my wife and we're like identical with financial. We're big time savers. I mean, we are like penny pushers, but it definitely, when you get someone that's a huge saver and someone that's a huge spender, can cause conflict.
Wow. And I think that's the point, a significant point there you made. It isn't that you have to be the same. You're not taking a compatibility thing to see that if you're the same. It's to understand your partner. So like you said so well, oh, she's doing this, and it may even be the opposite of what you do. She's doing this because she feels frustrated right now. Oh, okay, now I can respond to that. I know. Whereas in your head, you're like, I don't do that when I'm upset. She's crazy. Like, what's she doing? That's not how you handle conflict. You handle it like I handle. It's like, no, that's not the case. It's understanding that. My wife and I did a whole podcast episode in our Extraordinary Family Life podcast on this personality assessment that Jordan Peterson and his colleagues put together. Same thing. It's just like you find out where you and your spouse are on the scale and how to work together. So that's another thing I would highly recommend, which I think you're saying as well, is like keep learning about your spouse and yourself. Like this doesn't end. Like you keep going, especially where we're a family, we're marriage before and then with the kids, and then after, when all the kids move out, like you still are in this discovery and still courting each other, loving each other, finding out who we are and how we work well together in all these phases of life. And they keep changing, and you keep changing, your spouse keeps changing. Man, it's a critical component of understanding how we can work together, not that we necessarily are the same.
Definitely. Well, and like we said before, Greg, I mean, we don't do this perfect. Nobody is perfect, but it's constantly seeing what's happened, seeing some of these failures, learning from them and getting better. Like the decisions that we make, whether they're good or bad, we learn from and just get better. And so, and that's one thing I don't want to come across like, oh, I'm in this young stage and I have it to get, I don't. And I'm constantly learning and I'm failing quite a bit, but at the same time, we're coming together, we're communicating, learning, and growing from those different failures. But I will tell you, the one thing is, for me, my wife was, we're in this to the end. Like that was our big thing. We said, no matter what, we're going to be in this to the end. And that was one of the things, and I'll kind of go back to the very beginning with my father. And I just want to tell you the story because I just think it's too cool. And I love it. My parents' 25th anniversary, they were older when they had my sister and I. And so their 25th anniversary, I was about 12. And I don't know, sometimes at weddings, they'll do like, they'll have all the couples, the married couples come out and they'll do a dance. And whoever's there been married the longest, they win and they give advice to the married couple. My parents win that because they're a little bit older, but they got married so young. When my parents were 25, their 25th anniversary, I remember it was at our house and we're standing there. My dad pulls me off to the side and he goes, hey, what I'm about to tell you is something that is for myself, was a huge accomplishment. For 25 years, I have been successful. I mean, not successful. I have been faithful to your mother, and I will be faithful until the end. And I want you to know that. Yeah. And to this day, I still remember looking at him while he's telling me this. And I go, I want to be like you. That was one of the defining moments of what a relationship looks like.
And you were 12.
And so, yeah, I was 12. I was in my teenage years. So I was like 12 or 13.
Yep. You just dial that into a young man of like, this is what it looks like.
This is it. And I'm going to continue to be faithful to your mother. And what did that make me want to do? That made me that I can't wait until I'm my 25th anniversary with my wife to look at my kids, pull them off to the side and do the same thing, because that's what my grandfather did with my father, and my father did it with me, and I will be doing that with my kids. And so to see him go through that, and as I didn't know much about when I was 12, but the battles and struggles of what that looks like. So anyways, that was something that was ingrained in me from the very beginning, and that's not a goal that's going to be achieved. And I can tell you that, but at the same time, like I said, that was something that was huge that my father did with me at a young age when I was in my teens.
Cool. Then that's that family legacy.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. And it's cool to hear you share this story. And I hope that all the dads who are listening are getting that. Because even if we didn't have dads like that, the goal is to draw the line and become the, in your case, which is amazing. I love it. You want to be like your dad. Fantastic. He set the example, you follow it. In my case and some other cases, and some people listening had great dads and they're following that example. It's awesome. Some didn't have the example. And so we draw the line there and say, well, I'm going to become the example. So this doesn't happen to my kids. Right. And 100%. So now hearing you share this, it's almost like 30 years out, right? I'm seeing this like, oh, one day my sons are going to have 3 kids, 3 babies, they're home, and they're gonna be like, yeah, I want them to say like, yeah, my dad set the example for me. Right.
Right.
And this is awesome. I love hearing you share this. So special.
Well, thank you.
Hey, why do you save so much? Let's shift gears. Let's go to finances. Why save so much? What's the money philosophy?
Well, I mean, I think it kind of comes back to, like I said, my father was in real estate. I mean, he's in real estate 40 plus years, and he's seen 4 financial recessions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've witnessed my parents, and again, they didn't have anything. Like my parents, he didn't have a family trust. I mean, it was my mom and it was my dad, and that's it. They were both teachers. And so he said, I'm going to get into real estate. And so got into real estate, went through all these different recessions. And the 2007, 2008 was a killer. I was 18 at the time. I just tore out my ACL for the 3rd time. I was supposed to go play college football. I was way too cocky. I mean, I was way too prideful, and tore out my ACL for the 3rd time. And I remember my parents coming to me with tears in his eyes. And he goes, Austin, we're about to lose everything. All their investments were tied up in homes, properties, rental properties, places, land down in Mexico. I mean, like it was all these condos and whatnot. And he's like, we're about to lose everything. Mom and I are about to lose everything. And I can't pay for you to go to college. And you're either going to have to not go to college, go with a football scholarship, or pay for it yourself. And so it was kind of one of those growing up moments. I was 18. I just torn out my ACL actually for the 2nd time, and I went and played at community college football, and then I tore it out the 2nd game of the season for a 3rd time. And it was like, I remember looking at my dad with his tears in his eyes saying, we're about to lose it all. And I said, okay, don't worry. I got this. Like, you take care of mom. Don't worry. I can, I'll be all right. And so then that was the moment of like, all right, let's rock and roll. I got to be able to put myself through school. So then that's when I started working, and I had, 2 or 3 different jobs while in college, training and whatnot. But then as we got older and I met my wife, it was one of those things that it's building that passive income, right? And you hear so many people, right? You'll look on Instagram, you'll look on Facebook, and they're like, if you want to build passive income, but for us, it was, we want to be able I want to be able to provide for my kids, but at the same time, I want to be able to be there. And so we had this strategy, and I remember we're sitting in a restaurant right here in Phoenix, writing out our plan, our plan of what we're going to do, how we're going to achieve it.
Yes.
And then following through with it. And it's not easy. And I'm not saying like, oh, we have all this money. No, I'm not saying that at all. But it was budgeted out. This is where we're going to be. And we might not hit it. But if we, after a year, we relook at it, and then we'll kind of go to the next goals and the next goals.
But the key is to have a plan. It's interesting how few people and few couples have a clear written plan. And again, yeah, it's not 100%, but you have some kind of structure, and you seek to honor it. And you get so much closer than if you have nothing.
Exactly. And if you don't have that goal or that plan, then it's just free reign. Oh, we'll buy this, or if you don't have a budget, you don't know what you're spending. So then you can't plan on how much you're going to save. Where does this need to go? Does it need to go in this account? How much am I going to invest? And so there was a couple of reasons why we do save, and it's a reason why I saved, and then my wife saved, because she put herself, luckily she got a scholarship, but she worked all through, 17, 18, 19. Her parents did an unbelievable job raising her, that, money doesn't grow on trees. And so for when we came together, it was one of those things that I witnessed what my parents went through. So I wanted to have money set aside, and wanted to be able to not just only rely on real estate, but also have multiple streams of income. But the only way to do that is, time and money. And so, so it took a little bit of time of, having money, having different opportunities, being able to put different investments that were going to create that passive flow into, our bank. And so, and it's a work in progress. Some things work out, some things don't.
Yep. Which ones, if you, what streams are you working towards?
Yeah. So right now, really, it's the. Oh, sorry. What were we gonna say?
No, I was just gonna. Is it commercial real estate? Is it residential real estate? Is it multi-door? Is it crypto? Like, just give us some of your the things you're kind of seeking towards, just out of curiosity.
Love it. Yeah. So one of them is residential. So having multiple residential properties. And I could talk forever on this. So I'm going to make it really quick. So I think too many times, especially, I work with a lot of first time home buyers because the age that I'm at, right? And I have a lot of friends that are trying to buy. But the problem is they get too scared when they buy their first home, that if they do, they can actually turn that into a rental property. Yeah. And all you need is, in Arizona, and again, this is not legal advice, so don't take it that way, but is if you can get a lease and a security deposit, that can get wiped away and you can get another primary loan. And so you can actually turn your first home into a rental property, and then go buy another home. And I think it's after 2 years that you can do this, and you can start stacking it. And now suddenly you have, 2 or 3 different properties. So that's one way of going about it. The other one is like the fourplex. I have an investor that I work with, and all that he's done is done a lot of things, but he gets the triplexes, the duplexes, and the fourplexes, and he turns one door into 4 doors. And so now he has multiple doors that are producing. So residential, just because, and commercial, just because that's my kind of area that I work with real estate. So that whole flow, and it creates that, they call it mailbox money, or that passive income. But then also on the avenue, like right now, in working with a couple of buddies, that smaller businesses, acquiring smaller businesses, especially right now with the baby boomers. There's so many baby boomers that they're done. They want to retire, they want to be done, but they built these businesses and they just want to get rid of them. So
you're right. And with the kind of economic social winter we're going into, there's going to be even more of those. There's going to be so many opportunities to scoop up businesses.
Yeah. And and you can get them. I won't go into it too deep, but you can get some of these businesses with these different business loans and whatnot. So building it through there, and then if you can try and get real property like in that business loan. So there's a couple of different avenues, and of course the stock market. And I've I tried my hand at NFTs. Completely failed miserably. So you get some wins and you get some losses.
There you go. Good.
Yeah,
I think you just want your wins.
Yep. Yeah, you just want your wins to be more than your losses. But it's just one of those things. You kind of, if you can catch it at the right time, great. Like Bitcoin, I have some friends that made off with Bitcoin. They got it before it blew up, and they're doing fantastic with their money and whatnot. But those are just a few of just some of the avenues. But really, I'm trying to hone in on that passive income. And the only way that we can do it is with time and money. And so I'm saving that money and having different groups that I know, that I work with, friends and whatnot, that this is what they do. This is what we do. And we kind of go out and, and whatnot.
Good. So, man, I guess the message here, and that's why I wanted you to share, is like, you guys are really proactive about financial success, and of course, marriage success, family success. You've mentioned faith a few times. How much does faith play into your journey plan, business, lifestyle, family, marriage, parenting?
Oh, it's at the center. It's at the center of it all. I mean, it's one of the things, my wife grew up. I mean, we both grew up in Christian households, and very blessed by it. And I think the biggest thing for us is, you know, it helps us navigate through these different decisions, right? And making these different decisions. So, like I said, it's at the center of it.
Beautiful. And I love the way you just frame that up, because almost everything we've talked about here, you've set yourself up to make it easier to make decisions and stick to them.
Right.
With reading the books and communicating and writing things down and getting counseling and help and working on it, and then making plans and revisiting the plans and asking the question. Everything's comes back to, like, it's so interesting. Like, sometimes we're our own worst enemies. Like, we're the villains in our own life story instead of the hero, right? And we make it so hard on ourselves to make good decisions and keep them.
Right.
But that's a huge takeaway there, that the faith piece and the finance piece and the family piece, it all starts together to kind of come in and give you this framework. And it doesn't make it super easy, but it makes it easier. And
Definitely.
we've got to strategically give ourselves advantages that are available for all of us.
Right. Oh, 100%.
Man, that's cool. That's cool stuff. Awesome. And thanks for being here, brother. Thanks, Austin. I really appreciate it, man. Some great insights, and you're in this awesome time of life where I genuinely miss the little ones. From like 6 months to like 7 years was like this stage for me, where they're just cute and chubby and curious, and they make disasters, and they're into everything, and they try everything, and they just cling to you and cuddle with you. And oh man, I love it. And I love every phase, right? We have 4 teens now. And the older kids, our youngest is 5. And so she's still just coming out of that. I'm like, oh, I miss it. I even miss changing diapers, as crazy as that sounds. It's just such a beautiful, wonderful time when they're so little like that. So, enjoy it, brother. As crazy as that sounds to say this, enjoy the chaos of it all. And it sounds like you guys are so deliberate about it and proactive and trying to do it right now.
Trying to be, and like I said, it's we're working together, and we have these failures, and then we come together and work through those. And it's, every day is a new day. And like you said, with the kids, it's, the days are long, but the years are short. So we're really trying. And I fall into this whole thing of, I need to enjoy it. I need to enjoy it. I need to enjoy it. And I'm like, I am enjoying this. This is enjoying it. So no, I greatly appreciate you and all that that insight, that wisdom, and what you're doing, because it's making a difference. And you're helping so many people. And anything that I can do, you let me know. But I really do appreciate you, letting me talk. And I'm always here, and I'm just going into that next phase. So I'm gonna need some advice. I'm gonna need some help. So,
say, man, I love it.
Thank
you. Thank you for making the time and being on here and sharing that example of being so intentional. It's a beautiful thing, man. Any last thoughts for the gentleman listening? Anything you haven't touched on? The last words?
Hey, listen, we're all gonna fail, right? We're all gonna mess up. But at the end of the day, just know that you are loved, and that it's taking some of those decisions, taking some of the things that are happening, and not letting it define you, but letting it refine you and learning from it.
Oh, so good, brother. So good, Austin. Thanks, man. Thanks for being on.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you so much.